How does possession arise? A possessor can penetrate only if the victim's spiritual protective net is not impenetrable, but offers cracks. The dark forces use every weakness. A solid protective net, on the other hand, does not allow lower beings from the astral world to approach. You may also ask how to counter unwelcome visitors. Only through vigilance of the spirit, not permitting them to contact your essence. Urusvati knows how these unwelcome guests have recoiled. It was not even necessary to drive them away, for they could not penetrate the protective net. Such natural protection is always best, but for this, hardening of the spirit is required. The protective net is mainly fed by our own psychic energy. Therefore, a major cause of possession is lack of psychic energy. The neglect of psychic energy is manifested as the source of many ailments. It can be said that not only bodily and psychic illnesses, but obsessions depend entirely upon the state of psychic energy. A man who has lost immunity has also lost his store of psychic energy. The man who has violated moral equilibrium demonstrates thereby the dissoluteness of his psychic energy. Everyone knows that it is easier not to admit dissoluteness than afterwards to subdue the madness resulting therefrom. Everyone understands that the disorder of psychic energy is the birth of many miseries, both for oneself and for others. Another important cause of possession is weakness of the will, which generally attracts lower subtle beings. By reason of relaxation of the will, control is weakened, and by this the attraction of various lower entities is increased. There are many people who are called weak-willed. In fact, two wills weaken each other. If you are a healthy, strong person, you will not allow the predatory will of a hostile being from the astral world to take control of the body entrusted to you. You will defend yourself vigorously and fight with all your strength until the attack is repelled. You often have met such pests. They cannot be excused for being possessed. Otherwise, every weak-willed person would find a similar justification for himself. You will be asked, how does justice act upon the obsessed? Who bears the consequences, the obsessed or the obsessor? Who can distinguish where the will of the obsessor is and where the will of the obsessed himself? Spiritual weakness and thus susceptibility to possession also arise from immoral behavior. People usually think that possession takes control only of weak organisms, but the main cause lies in the immoral condition of the possessed one. It can be stated without error that possession enters mainly through the door of immorality, which, whether evident or secret, or just as a seed, can invite possession. It is commonly thought that possession can be cured by strong psychic suggestion, but improvement of the moral qualities is also necessary. Suggestion can eject the possessor for a while, but if the moral condition is raised, the entrance will be closed to the possessor. Biological morality is a firm foundation for successful self-improvement. He who sinks to a deep moral level should not be surprised if he attracts corresponding spirits from the lower strata of the subtle world. Obsession takes place only when an access has been opened. Moreover, before obsession takes place, the evil one whispers and prepares the weak spirit. To those inclined to evil appear the entities attracted by them. The karma of the obsessed is a grievous one. That is why spiritual purity is so important. Just imagine the power of a pure thought. You know that such a thought purifies the aura and emanates a radiant light. And what is more, purity of thought is the best defense against dark entities. Furthermore, he who is uncertain, hesitant, or in doubt is at risk of possession. He does not know what he wants. He does not even notice exactly what is going on around him. And then he allows others to do with him as they wish. It should be acknowledged that not only the faint-hearted, but also those who give in to doubt become easy prey to possessors. When this illness occurs, the possessed one loses awareness of what he does, and those around him are astonished by the sudden change in his personality. People can struggle with base astral entities only when they are firm in their understanding of their own future path. Their passing into the higher spheres will then be easier, and they will not feel the errors of the dwellers of the lower astral plane. Unfortunately, most people do not choose the higher path, and therefore remain unprotected. On the other hand, he who is pure, strong, and firmly committed to his principles and ideals needs not fear possession. The steadfast, upright, cognizing spirit knows not obsession. The pure heart need not fear obsession. Sincerity does not admit obsession. There are not only evil possessors, but also those with seemingly good intentions. However, these have a low level of consciousness, otherwise they would not resort to force, and therefore, in most cases, cause damage only. Not all obsessions are necessarily dark ones. There may be influences from the middle spheres, which, in the belief of the obsessors, are directed for good, although no especially good results will be derived. The obsessors are of such low degrees, and the vehicles within their reach are of no high development. Thus, duality of thinking, imbalance, and lack of self-control result. Here is an instructive example. There are many kinds and degrees of obsession, and the obsessors themselves can be of the most varied order. We knew, for instance, one pious old lady who was possessed by her great-grandfather, a bishop. There was nothing bad in the old lady. She was a charity worker and was preaching the ideas of her great-grandfather, the bishop, who apparently did not fulfill his mission during his life. Nevertheless, such cases are very sad, as an obsessed person always gradually loses his own will and becomes a victim of the obsessor. The whole life of such a victim is spent without any true achievements and accumulations. It was quite possible that she was even helping some people, but for the old lady herself, this condition was rather harmful, as the growth of her spirit was entirely paralyzed. She was only an obedient instrument of her obsessor. One must clearly distinguish a violent seizure from the loving, helpful action of a high subtle being who would never exercise any physical or psychic compulsion. The beneficent influence of the supramundane world must be clearly distinguished from harmful possession. Good influences do not enslave the free will. They open the individual to increased possibilities. Such influence will always be caring and solicitous toward the physical condition of the organism, but possession always ends with something pernicious and destructive for the physical and the subtle bodies. Obsession as something coercive always pertains to darkness, whereas the higher forces infuse one with the spirit, or send the ray of higher inspiration to him who is able to assimilate it. There is no higher achievement than the assimilation of the ray of the fiery world. How does possession express itself? The attack may be intended and succeed to varying degrees. It may range from a small or temporary conquest, which manifests itself in small quirks only, via the constant and almost perfect subjugation of the attacked soul, up to its complete expulsion from its body. In the worst case, the body expresses almost exclusively the foreign personality of the possessor. If he is, as usual, a lower being, he may even use the victim to commit crimes and violence. The varieties of obsession are highly diverse, from an almost imperceptible eccentricity up to violence. Creatures from the lower layers of the subtle world are nourished by the emanations of irritation, anger, fury, jealousy, hatred, and the like. Depression is the most gloomy magnet, and irritation also entices ugly guests. Stirrings of this kind literally provide these astral beings with food. The more excitement there is, the better they feel. In anger and irritation, man considers himself strong. This is according to earthly considerations. But regarded from the subtle world, the irritated man is especially powerless. He attracts to himself a great number of small entities which feed on the emanations of anger. Besides, he lets down his own bars and allows the lower beings even to read his thoughts. Therefore, the state of irritation is inadmissible, not only as a producer of imperial, but also as a gateway for lower entities. People refuse to recognize that their thoughts and words may cause irreparable harm. It is impossible to convince people that they are destroying their psychic energy. They nourish those harmful entities whom we call devourers of psychic energy. Whether swear words are uttered during fits of anger and irritability or through ignorance, the resulting harm is the same. Characteristic of a possessed one is that he causes chaos wherever possible. He is not accessible to reason. He acts against his own interests only in order to sow destruction. He even accepts to cause his own annihilation thereby. The malice of those who attempt possession is then intensified and their hatred increased, even to their own detriment. One can often observe that the obsessed act irrationally, driven only by the urge to commit evil. Maybe you already had the disturbing experience of having to deal with someone who is literally ridden by the devil, who is not accessible to any factual arguments, not even to advice relating to his own well-being. Then, perhaps, you had to do with a possessed one. Do not even try to bring such a person to his senses. He does not want to know anything about sense. He just hates reason and order and feels comfortable in chaos only. The worst thing is to pester a possessed person by urging him to show the good judgment of which he is incapable. Homosexuality may, I repeat, may be caused by possession. For example, a possessor who was previously incarnated in a female body may abuse a male body in order to continue to play his previous female role. Possession may even be found in the vicinity of high offices or of spiritual people, because there it can cause particularly great damage. As always, the law of correspondence applies. The higher someone stands spiritually, the more powerful are the enemies from the subtle world with whom he has to cope. You should not be surprised to find a number of possessed people near the hearths of spirituality. The reason for this is that the dark forces are seeking to strengthen their guard. Who, if not the possessed, is best able to assist the dark forces? Moreover, there are countless varieties of possession. First of all, you need to look into the essence and discern where there is good and where harm. That is how the flaming heart will immediately discern where possession is concealed. The dark forces are using obsessed persons as obedient tools in order that through them they may gain entry into spiritually pure groups and treacherously ruin them.